Oh yeah, we ready. We strapped up. It's wartime, family. That time coming, our Savior come, we got to be ready for it. Is you ready? Then hold up, 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 hold up. Kwam Yashala, Kwam Yashala, Kwam Yashala, Kwam Yashala. Hold up, 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 hold up. Kwam Yashala, Kwam Yashala, Kwam Yashala, Kwam Yashala.
Israel about to rise. My people, can't you feel it inside? I'm talking to the 12 tribes. The Messiah died to give you life. So search my heart, Lord, and cleanse my mind. Yeah, you better pray that he do the same for you, because we running out of time. We at the end of the world, and that ain't no exaggeration. And this is reverse psychology, undoing all your miseducation. Better believe that, cause it takes faith to perceive that. It's reward at the end for utilizing your gifts to minister what a pimp pours and G's at. That I knew there'd be an issue with the word that I use. Clarity for you super bruise, the horrors of the lost she too. So I encourage all of you to never know mind all of the haters. Repent and it'll get greater later. Exhorting one another before the return of our Savior. When he comes to crack the sky, either you're holy or you're not. I know it's hard to live this life, but it would be worse than not to try. When it comes to the commandments, it's either you do or you die. His word prove I'm not a lie. You don't take heed, then it would be jewels that you drop. Got the whole Hebrew hood saying Ra. Yeah, me and the Most High make you reflect on your favorite tune. Cause life is chess, you gotta think for your move. Yasha coming soon.
Hold up, 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 hold up. Kwam Yashala, Kwam Yashala, Kwam Yashala, Kwam Yashala. Hold up, 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 hold up. Kwam Yashala, Kwam Yashala, Kwam Yashala, Kwam Yashala. Mitra down, fringes on, strapped with a KJV. Tupac at a photo shoot. Yeah, picture me rolling with the 12 tribes, spiritual insomniac. Ego bumper, ego bet I firebird like a Pontiac. Beating on the drum while we marching around Jericho. Round and round, yeah, like the merry-go. Yeah, like a Bendigo, Shadrach and Meshach. See, we've been put through a fire, but Yasha put us through that. He woke me up out of coma, told me go back on the corner and prophesy to the wind. Leave these dry bones soaking. See, I put on for my city, cause they made us forget it. We've been dispersed through a curse, but now my Father so pity. Now this amazing awakening's taking place in the last hour. They rousing up a Lion King, we taking back what's ours. For tribe representative, but I ride for all of them. Kwam Yashala, oh how I long for Jerusalem. Hold up, 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 hold up. Kwam Yashala, Kwam Yashala, Kwam Yashala, Kwam Yashala. Hold up, 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 hold up. Kwam Yashala, Kwam Yashala, Kwam Yashala, Kwam Yashala. Trigger, I'm more than a nigga when I hear that Yashala Kwam. Picnic, man, pick a nigga so he gon' do him like the Viet Cong. Yeah, Babylon, they gon' get recompense. The judgment will not be innocent. I don't care if they got Johnny Cochran and their OJ and the glove do not fit. There will be wars and rumors of war and destruction for the mother whore. When we rule, yes, we gon' rule, and when we rule, it's forevermore. I say Kwam Yashala, a soldier for me, our Ahayah. Yes, I's a rider from the tribe of Judah. Hold up, 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 hold up. Kwam Yashala, Kwam Yashala, Kwam Yashala, Kwam Yashala. Hold up, 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 hold up. Kwam Yashala, Kwam Yashala, Kwam Yashala, Kwam Yashala.
Yo, Shalom family. Our praises to Kahi, the Ruach Kadash, the Holy Spirit. Our praises to Enoki said, that's Ahayah Christ said, the great I am, loving kindness. Our praises to Mo to the Lamb, our minister of forgiveness. Yasha, our Savior. Welcome to another installment of Clear Eyes, No VISINE. This is episode 4 of the Remembrance of Moses series. This episode is and will be titled The Law of JESHURUN. We have an episode in our Remembrance of Enoch series named The First Great Division. In that episode, the Lord asked YASHAYA to divide between his righteous children and his unrighteous children. In that episode, we read about the implications of the division YASHAYA established. Y'all go check out that episode, man, for real. Our Remembrance of Enoch playlist. That's where that thing's at. Once again, the episode is titled The First Great Division. In this episode today, we are dealing with the same account, but the difference is we're going to read about the specific day YASHAYA made this great division, what it looked like, and all that happened. This episode is a precept to the first great division episode in the Remembrance of Enoch series. The book of Remembrance of Enoch was written way back in 2007. While the book of Remembrance of Moses was written this year in 2023. 16 years between these accounts. That's how long Ben-Elim, Goku III, and his community have been striving not to only understand but also walk in this information. So let's get into the information. Why don't we? Man, y'all mash on the like button, subscribe to the channel if you have yet to do so. Hit the bell so you are notified every time we drop something new. We are back in the book of Remembrance of Moses, chapter 2, verse 1. But before we get started, let's read Revelation 3:18. I counsel thee to buy of me gold tried in the fire, that thou mayest be rich, and white raiment, that thou mayest be clothed, and that the shame of thy nakedness do not appear, and anoint thine eyes with eye salve, that thou mayest see. Y'all hear that? And anoint thine eyes with eye salve, that thou mayest see. Clear eyes, no VISINE, family. Let go. So once again, we're in the book of Remembrance of Moses, chapter 2. We are starting at verse 1. Let's read. And it came to pass that the presence of the Lord departed away from before the Urim, but a strong presence of his spirit remained upon us all. And I wept much at the thought of so much evil coming against Israel, our beloved, and against the law of JESHURUN. Hey y'all, man, if y'all tuned into the last episode of this series, y'all saw that the war in Israel and the law of JESHURUN comes straight out of the pit of CHAAKAMAWATH. A place where Ahayah is even scared to enter. A place ruled by Asael. Y'all go back and check out that episode titled The Tablet of Gabriel. Let's keep reading. I wept much at the thought of so much evil coming against Israel, our beloved, and against the law of JESHURUN, and my legs were weak. This is Goku III speaking after he had a Urim session, seeing the madness that was upon Israel and the law of JESHURUN. Let's read verse 2. It starts from the beginning of verse 2. And my legs were weak from my encounter before the Urim and my grieving, and I had to have assistance to walk back to my seat. And it was difficult for us to return to our usual daily labors, but the Lord was urgent that we continue with the vision without delay. So we set a time, and we all assembled again before the Urim. And it came to pass that as I looked, I saw the Lord standing over a man lying on the ground, and the Lord is very sorrowful. And the Lord looked my way, and he said, I came here to be with you today, to open up to you the very inception of the law of JESHURUN. Look, y'all, the Lord came to open up to us the very beginning of the law of JESHURUN. This is Hamashiach speaking right here. Let's read that again. And he said, I came here to be with you today, to open up to you the very inception of the law of JESHURUN. And the day before it came to be thought of using the term law, And at this very early time, I can instruct you about the decisions that were made by both the righteous and by the sons of perdition. And I see the man on the ground here before us is Mattaniah. So Gokuram III recognizes the body laying on the ground. It's Mattaniah, or who we know in the Bible is Abel. So y'all understand the scene right quick. This is where, and soon after, Mattaniah or Abel was killed. We also dealt with the Cain and Abel account in our Remembrance of Enoch series. Y'all tune in to all our playlists, man. Very informative information. We will see precepts with each other. So y'all try to stay up to date so y'all can truly understand the mysteries in the histories unveiled by most of the Lamb Christ through these books. Let's start verse 4 over. And I see the man on the ground here before us is Mattaniah, son of Yashakai, which is Adam, right? Let's keep reading. And I see his hair is matted with blood. And the Lord said, events have transpired here that are to become the foundation of that which evil would do against the king of Jeshurun, against the law of Jeshurun, against the God of Jeshurun, against the man named Jeshurun, and against his people Israel. Okay. So there was that right here, these were statements right there that can be proven in the Bible. But our view of the scriptures have been twisted. They've been tainted, just twisted apart, right? Watch this. But if we can practice a little bit of humility and view the Bible from the perspective of the books of remembrances, we will get precepts, perfect precepts and understanding on scriptures in the Bible that we couldn't understand before. Y'all walk with me. Let's look at this for a second, huh? So the Lord is standing at the scene of Mattaniah's death. Mattaniah is Abel. Remember that. We know Mattaniah is Abel from the Bible, right? The Messiah just told us that the events that happen there are going to become the foundation of the things evil would do against the king of Jeshurun, against the law, against the God of Jeshurun, against the man named Jeshurun, against the man named Jeshurun's people. And that people is my people, Israel, huh? Khan, that's right. In the last episode of this series titled The Tablet of Gabriel, we dealt with these, or with this. We dealt with it again here with a couple more precepts though, right? Watch this. Watch this, y'all. Some of these we heard the last time, but gonna be some new stuff here. Let's go to the Bible and see who the king of Jeshurun is, right? We're going to Deuteronomy chapter 33. We're going to read verses 4 through 5. Moses commanded us a law, even the inheritance of the congregation of Jacob, and he was king in Jeshurun. And Moses, y'all, was king in Jeshurun. Let's finish verse 5. And he was king in Jeshurun when the heads of the people and the tribes of Israel were gathered together. So Moses is the king of Jeshurun, right? So now this law of Jeshurun, here's where we will have to look at it from the perspective of the books of remembrances. Let's stay here at the same precept though, right? Deuteronomy chapter 33 verse 4. Y'all read with me. Moses commanded us a law, even the inheritance of the congregation of Jacob. Again, we dealt with these precepts last week. We're going to read Achi chapter 3 verse 35 though, right? Y'all come with me. This is first Achi chapter 3 verse 35. And Achi looked again and he beheld Jeshurun in the midst of all creation, which name by interpretation means to act in righteousness. And he said to the Lord, what is it that I am seeing? The Lord said, Jeshurun is the foundation of the law of virtue that springs forth out of the heart of the Son of God. And they are also the 12 gifts of my offering to my Father, which were for this purpose of heralding to all creation the peace and tranquility of mankind. And in this way, with the guidance of God in the beginning given unto the entire family of mankind by the dividing of the 12 sons of Adam. Remember, y'all, I said if we look at the Bible from the perspective of the books of remembrances, we can precept the book of remembrance of Moses, right? And we can get some new understanding from the Bible. Let's read that last part again. And in this way was the guidance of God in the beginning given unto the entire family of mankind by the dividing of the 12 sons of Adam. Y'all hear that? By the dividing of the 12 sons of Adam. Y'all remember that? Huh? Write it down, something, scribble it down, do something. Remember that by the dividing of the 12 sons of Adam. Let's keep reading. And the meaning of their names are the element of righteousness according to my 12 gifts unto the Father. But the wickedness that preceded the flood overshadowed them. And in a man who was called Israel remains the alone inheritance of God in these things. And in a man who's called Israel remains the alone inheritance. It remains alone the inheritance of God in these things. That right there is contextually speaking about the law of JESHURUN. Now with that understanding, let's read Deuteronomy 33 verse 4 again, right? Moses commanded us a law, even the inheritance of the congregation of Jacob. In 1 chapter 3 verse 35 we read, and a man who was called Israel remains alone the inheritance of God in these things, talking about the law of JESHURUN. And we just read in Deuteronomy chapter 33 verse 4, Moses commanded a law that was the inheritance of the congregation of Jacob, who was Israel. Through thy precepts I get understanding, so I hate every false way. So let's get another precept. We're staying here in Deuteronomy, right? But we're going to chapter 32. We're going to read verses 6 through 9. This is Israel being spoken to. Let's read Deuteronomy 32 verse 6. Deuteronomy chapter 32 verse 6. Do ye thus requite the Lord, O foolish people and unwise? Is not he thy father that hath bought thee? Hath he not made thee and established thee? Remember the days of old. Consider the years of many generations. Ask thy father, and he will show thee, thy elders, and they will tell thee. Now right here, y'all pay close attention to this right here. Verse 8. When the Most High divided to the nations their inheritance, when he separated the sons of Adam. Y'all hear that? When he separated the sons of Adam. I told y'all to remember that. We read that in 1 chapter 3 verse 35. Let's read that again. We're in the middle of chapter 3 verse 35, right? In 1 And this is why, and this is the way, and in this way was the guidance of God in the beginning given unto the entire family of mankind by the dividing of the 12 sons of Adam. Y'all hear that? By the dividing of the 12 sons of Adam. In this episode tonight, we're going to see how YASHAYA, who is Adam, divided his sons. Let's go back to Deuteronomy 32 verse 8, right? When the Most High divided to the nations their inheritance, right? When he separated the sons of Adam, he set the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel. For the Lord's portion is his people. Jacob is the lot of his inheritance. The Lord's portion received the law of JESHURUN. Therefore, Jacob or Israel is the lot of his inheritance. So let's go back to the book of Remembrance of Moses, We are back in chapter 2. Let's read verse 4 again. And I see the man on the ground here before us is Mattaniah, son of Yatsakad, and I see his hair is matted with blood. And the Lord said, events have transpired here that are to become the foundation of that which evil would do against the king of JESHURUN, against the law of JESHURUN, and against the God of JESHURUN, and against the man named JESHURUN, and against his people Israel. Hey y'all, we went to JESHURUN in the concordance in the last episode of this series, titled The Tablet of Gabriel, and we saw that JESHURUN is a symbolic name for Israel, proving the man named JESHURUN is Israel. And we know his people is Israel, which Deuteronomy 32 also calls Israel JESHURUN. So let's keep reading. We're at verse 5 now. And these events that you will see in this vision will reveal that important decisions by the intervention of agency have been made and identities have been selected by both the righteous and the wicked, and their purpose, both for good and for ill, have been set in motion for the long duration of the earth, starting with these events now to be unfolded before you. Amazing, family, right? So the Cain and Abel account, which we dealt with in our Remembrance of Enoch series, the title of that episode is The Two Religions, The Origins of Sorcery, is also a precept to this account we're reading today. So that account and this has given us understanding on how the world, or this episode today will give us understanding on how the world got to where it is today. Let's keep reading verse 6. And it is important for my people to learn how the conflict all began between the forces of light and the forces of darkness, so that my people Israel, through understanding and faith, can overcome to accomplish their vision. Whoa, now, you hear that? Let's read that again. And it is important for my people to learn how the conflict all began between the forces of light and the forces of darkness, so that my people Israel, through understanding and faith, can overcome to accomplish their vision. These books are a salvational issue, Yasharala. Why do I keep saying that? Let's keep reading. And the truth will empower them. Who's them he talking about? He's talking about Israel. Let's keep going. And the truth will empower them, and understanding will bring them wisdom. And when it's their time to perform their vital work for my Father, they can come prepared in all things, and they can rightfully anticipate the course that evil will take against them, and thus arise victorious. It's a salvational issue, my people, because it's preparing us for the next level of madness that's gonna come at us. The evil forces have been warring with us. They have been warring with us before there ever wasn't Israel, before there ever wasn't us. But as the end draws closer, the war against us cranks up even more. And with the understanding we're getting in these documents, we can know how to protect ourselves. Man. Since episode 1 of this series, jewels have been getting dropped to whomever has ears to hear. Don't give me credit. I'm just the messenger. My page is just the conduit. It's the Lord dropping these nuggets. It's the Lord pointing us to the narrow path and the straight gate, because he wants us to win, Israel. Win. Let's keep going. Verse 7. And I see others coming upon Mattaniah lying there, and they are very afraid, and they approach to view him as though there is a danger, and they discover that for a distance around him that there are other pieces of stone that fell from heaven, and then the one that hit him to strike him down, other than the one that hit him to strike him down. And the realization and the memory came into their minds that such a rock had fallen from heaven in Eden. So if y'all saw the Two Religions, The Origin of Sorcery episode, again, that's in our Remembrance of Enoch playlist. If y'all saw that episode, you know that Connect, which is Cain, killed Mattaniah with sorcery, causing meteors to fall and strike his brother Mattaniah, or who we know as Abel. So these are the rocks that the people are seeing around the body. We also learned in that episode that by the time of Mattaniah's death, Yasakai and Kava, Adam and Eve, had a few children who also had children, so the population was slowly growing. It wasn't just Adam, Eve, and their two sons, right? Let's start verse 7 over. And I see others coming upon Mattaniah, lying there, and they are very afraid, and they approach to view him as though there is a danger, and they discover that for a distance around him that there are other pieces of stone that fell from heaven other than the one that hit him to strike him down. And the realization and the memory came into their minds that such a rock had fallen from heaven in Eden, and word spread quickly that such a rock came again into their midst, and everyone wondered what it could mean. And upon hearing of it, some wondered if their world would change again, as their mother reported. And there were two who had heard it fall and saw the streak of light, and it fell in the middle of the day, and rock from heaven had landed upon the earth. And people asked, How could a rock get up there? Remembering the times of this account, they had never experienced death before. All they had ever heard was the story YASHAYA and Kava told them about Eden and what happened when Ahayah, who was also a meteor, fell into their ecosystem. So they were straight confused, looking at Mataniah. Keep that in mind. Keep it in mind when we read this account, Verse 8, and no one knew what human death was, and none of them had ever known anyone who had died or heard of it, and they kept waiting for him to come back to life. And Nefesh poked him with a stick, and he did not respond. And they said they did not know a person could end, but clearly Mataniah ended. And after a few days, they all knew Mataniah would never get up and walk again upon the earth. Y'all hear that? They said they never knew that someone could end. They ain't even have a word for death. That's how they knew it was. That's cold. They ain't even have a word for death. That's how they knew it was they just said he ended, man. Period sign. He ended. They ain't even know what to say or think. Verse 9, and they all asked, will we end too? Man, hold up. You want to talk about trauma, Will we end too? Let's keep reading. Verse 9. And they all asked, will we end too? And the parents could not answer the questions of the children of Mataniah. And in her great grief, Sephi went and stood by him, and she was stupefied and became insensible from the pain in her heart, and she could not speak for many days, and some wondered if she would ever speak again. But after a time she was heard sobbing, and through her grief she came to be able to speak again. If y'all been following our Enoch series, y'all know Sephi is Mataniah, Abel's wife. That's what Cain was beefing with Abel for, his brother. Cain wanted his brother's wife. Tripping. Y'all go check out the Two Religions, the Origin of Sorcery episode. We also talked about this account on the Origins of Polygamy episode. That's right. Man, y'all mash on the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you get to do so. Hit the bell so you're notified every time we drop something new. This information is fire. Plus the information is giving us our true history, Israel, our true heritage, Yasharallah. Man, hold up. So Sephi was sick, in straight shock. Her husband gone in a time when they ain't even know what death was. Ended, Verse 10, and through all this, Kenet was astonished because he did not know of death either. Kenet, which is Cain, was astonished also. These accounts really opened up my mind to serious thought, y'all. How could Cain plot a murder when he didn't even know what murder was? Deep. But let's keep reading, And through all this, Kenet was astonished because he did not know of death either. And he had exhibited spells of intense hatred when he was alone, and there was those who would hear him chanting his hatred, and all the mothers would keep their children away from coming near him, and nobody knew what his behavior could mean. Oh, love, man, look, I'm just picturing all this in my mind, y'all. Y'all imagine a mama walking by and hearing Cain chanting, Abel, just chanting some madness. They just scoop up their baby and forbid them from going around that there. You hear me? I better not even see you thinking about going over there, little one. Just keep it in mind. Keep it in your mind, all this. This was new to the people. They ain't know what to think. Verse 11, and Ahayah had whispered in his ear that if he would give his brother a new name and use hateful feelings for him when he was alone, then Mataniah will relent and give him his wife. Woo! And Ahayah whispered in his ear. Let's read that again. And Ahayah had whispered in his ear that if he would give his brother a new name and use hateful feelings for him when he was alone, then Mataniah will relent and give him his wife. Ahayah whispered in Cain's ear, y'all. Ahayah put a thought in his mind. Are y'all getting an idea of how the devil and his minions work? They put thoughts in our minds. It's the same way the Erech Kodeshi work. The difference is the Erech Kodeshi put righteous thoughts in our minds. Righteousness. And the Dekadarchi put wicked ones in our minds. Lies in our minds. That's why we have to learn to decipher spirits. Let's start verse 11 over. And Ahayah had whispered in his ear that if he would give his brother a new name and use hateful feelings for him when he was alone, then Mattaniah will relent and give him his wife. And he named Mattaniah Abel, which means someone who needs to be replaced. And the people heard him repeating that name over and over again during his spells of hatred. And Keneh would magnify his feelings of hatred with clenched teeth, and by this chanting for several days before Mattaniah was ended. In our Remembrance of Enoch series, we looked up Abel to prove what it meant. Go back and check it out, those episodes, right? The two religions of origin, or the two religions, the origin of sorcery and the origins of polygamy. Or just look up Abel in the concordance, right? Yasakat and Kava would not name their son Abel, man. Just more verification to these books, right? They would not name their son Abel, so it had to be given to him for other reasons. This book is telling us why. Verse 12. And Ahayah delighted in his hatred, and he expected Mattaniah would hate in return, and that by the means of hatred abounding between them, he would find a permanent place in Mola death. But no hatred came in return, and there was no retaliation. Nuggets upon nuggets, That's what we getting. Ahayah feeds off of negative feelings. All the Dekadarchi feed off unrighteous feelings. He persuaded Keneh or Cain to have hate in his heart concerning his brother, hoping that hate would motivate Mattaniah or Abel to hate back, which would allow Ahayah to just live in their encampment. Steady sowing discord. Are y'all starting to see why forgiveness is such a powerful element? There are demons walking around Babylon, whispering in ears, starting stuff, feeding off of those unrighteous feelings. Demons in your home, whispering in ears, starting stuff. At the end of episode 1 of this series titled Urim and Thummim, right? Michael told us the main weapon the enemy uses against us is low self-esteem and pride. Demons just whisper in our ear and trigger both low self-esteem and pride. Michael said the only way to overcome those weapons of the enemy is to let reproval flow. Let it flow easy. The only way reproval can flow, the only way it can flow is to look at reproval as a treasure, or the enemy will run crazy in our minds. Low self-esteem and pride. Now look around the world. Is that not what we see the most? Low self-esteem and pride? Let's start verse 12 over. And Ahayah delighted in his hatred, and he expected Mattaniah would hate in return, and that by the means of hatred abounding between them, he would find a permanent place of Mola death. But no hatred came in return, and there was no retaliation. And Mattaniah could feel all these terrible feelings coming toward him, but he never thought to hate back, and he did not know such feelings could be a force to feel. Mattaniah did not retaliate, y'all. He ain't bite the bait. Verse 13. And by the behavior of Mattaniah, Keneh knew that the hatred he was sending was being received. Y'all heard that? By the behavior of Mattaniah, Keneh's Cain, Mattaniah's Abel. Keneh knew that the hatred he was sending was being received. Have you ever been hated on, family? It's bothersome. You don't understand why. You like, man, you just don't get it. You like, what did I do? Let's read verse 13. And by the behavior of Mattaniah, Keneh knew that the hatred he was sending was being received, but he did not intend or desire for Mattaniah to die, because Keneh did not know what death was, and he believed the whispering of Semi-Hazan in his ear that he would end up with his wife Sephi and her twin sister Azura also. And the object to have these two women as his wives was for self-aggrandizement, of having for himself the only known twin girls to be born upon the earth. Did y'all hear that? Really? Keneh, really? Did y'all hear that? Cain wasn't trying to kill Mattaniah. He wasn't trying to kill Abel. He just wanted his wife. But did y'all hear what else? He wanted her twin sister too. It was for status. This wasn't even about no lust. It was about status. He wanted to be the only one around with twin wives. It was an exotic thing. He wanted to shine. Semi-Hazan put that in his mind. Cain, he already had a wife. Nah, he wanted the twins. Pride. Y'all see that? Verse 14. And it came to pass that when Keneh began to realize that which had transpired, he was stricken with shame. And Semi-Hazan did not know that such a thing as shame existed, and he was heavily drawn toward it. And it was as though he immediately became fixated upon shame, and he was overjoyed at this new discovery. And Semi-Hazan made shame the central feeling he would seek to feed on among mankind upon the earth. The demons feed off of unrighteous feelings, family. When Keneh, who is Cain, saw the consequences of his actions, of course, he felt shame. Semi-Hazan just loved that feeling of shame. It said he got fixated on it. Semi-Hazan was addicted to this feeling of shame. Verse 15, and after he discovered shame, he would use every means at his disposal to bring it out, to bring it about. And over time, he learned to make shame a lifelong experience of those who would follow after self-glory. And he would come to use every means to bring shame to a fullness in suicide. So the behavior of liars and thieves and braggarts and ignorant ruffians and fornicators and all such things may lead to the fullness of shame. Man, this stuff is deep, Yasharallah. Israel, this stuff is deep. Shame is a lifelong experience of those seeking self-glory. Man, they teach us to seek it. They teach us to get shame. Y'all hear what I'm saying? Do y'all hear what the books is saying? Shame is a lifelong experience of those seeking self-glory. Semi-Hazan will use shame in any way he can to bring suicidal thoughts. To what kind of people? Liars and thieves and braggarts and ignorant ruffians and fornicators, and all such things may lead to the fullness of shame. We must examine ourselves. Let's keep reading. And as it would happen, as Semi-Hazan found continuing opportunity to bring shame, he was able to establish Senecio. And now he had a place in creation where his craftiness could flourish and he could kill with death. I like how they say that, bro. Kill with death. That's crazy. And he could kill with death. Semi-Hazan created Senecio. All spirits were supposed to go to the second station after death. The fallen watchers gave an alternative though. In our last episode in this series, we read about what happens after death. Remember, the episode is titled The Tablet of Gabriel. Go back and check it out. Go and see who caused the wicked to go left, literally. We can't take this information for granted. These devils are real. Don't let anybody teach you anything different than that. These devils are real. Don't let devils whisper in your ears and tell you different. These devils are real. Let's keep reading. Verse 16. And the delight of Semihazah to have a foothold in Nod was soon to diminish because he lost his newfound foothold because Kenet and all his family were preparing to leave. And Kenet and his family were the only ones to have shame, and there was no shame left in Moladeth. So Kenet, who is now named Cain, ruled over Semihazah, and Semihazah was obliged to follow out with him if he was to continue to feed upon the shame of Cain. And when they all departed, Semihazah looked upon all those leaving, and he declared, all these are mine, and they belong to me, and they will be my kingdom, and I shall rule over them. And thus did Semihazah formulate his new identity, and with the hatred of Cain, the dimensions of his kingdom were set for the duration of the earth, and striking with chanted hatred became the desired way of evil. Striking with chanted hatred. We gotta be mindful of the music we listen to, kinfolk. CHAAKAMAWATH, Ahayah. We gotta be mindful. Most of that we listen to on the radio is chanting hatred. Tell me I'm lying. Casting spells through music. We gotta watch what our children be listening to. We can't take this information for granted. Try it by the Spirit, saints. So Moladeth is the name of Yashakai in Kava's village. Semihazah couldn't make a home there because Cain and his family were leaving. They were the only ones with shame. Are y'all starting to truly understand how the enemy works? He can't just live with righteousness, y'all. Devils got to have unrighteousness to feed on. Reproval exposes unrighteousness and causes repentance and change. And repentance is spiritual currency. It buys us peace and tranquility. This is heavy episode, family. I pray y'all are taking notes. Examine yourselves with this information. I know I had to the whole time putting this thing together. Cut action, sword, just cutting, And don't lie to yourself neither. Don't lie to your own self, Tell the truth, shame the devils. That's right. Verse 18. But there was another set of eyes watching all that had been thus described, and they were looking with cunning avarice, and it was Asael. Avarice means greed. They were looking with cunning greed. Cunning. Asael is cunning. Asael was watching and learning from the hate and death of Mattaniah, who we know is Abel. Let's keep reading. And shame was not that which had his interest, but he was drawn to the fear and to death. And Asael had not known of death before either. And he became instructed that this newfound source of pleasure in death came about in a conflict with men over women. Yo. Y'all heard that? We learned in our last episode of this series titled The Tablet of Gabriel that Semihazah, Satan, was not the worst entity out there, family. Nah, it was that figure, Asael. Semihazah ain't got nothing on him. It says shame ain't catch his interest. Nah, Asael wasn't worried about no shame, y'all. It was fear and death. Asael is the main one after our people and the law of Jeshurun. Do y'all hear what I'm saying? He learned from the conflict between Kenet and Mattaniah that mankind will kill behind that thing. What a Judah do behind that thing? That cat. That's what I'm talking about. He knew that ones would kill behind that. These books are making lots of records make sense. Watch this. Verse 19. And Asael decided that he wanted war and the beautification of women as his primary source for his power in the earth. And he set his place in creation and established the pit named Shakath. And his new identity and name became Belial. What they telling it on here? Belial is Asael. It's Asael, y'all. That's who Belial is. Woo. Let's keep reading. But the new identity of Ahayah came from his delight in accusations and bickering and arguing, which can always lead to hatred and shame, and his new name became Satan. So Asael is Belial and Ahayah is Satan. Asael created the pit called CHAAKAMAWATH, and in the tablet of Gabriel, episode 1, right? We learned, no, that was episode 3, but the first chapter of this book, we learned that the war on Israel and the law of JESHURUN comes from there, the pit of CHAAKAMAWATH. Verse 20, and these two forces that these evil ones came to identify have endured all during the course of the earth until this day, and they both had as their beginning this terrible tragedy with our first family. And this is how both Sheol and CHAAKAMAWATH came into being, and how the war against all things good would be constructed and put into place against the law of JESHURUN. Wow, we are being taught from on high with this information here, y'all. Man, y'all mash on the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you have yet to do so. Hit the bell so you're notified every time we drop something new. Share this content daily. Y'all know our people is searching. Share this thing. Help spread the word. Man, y'all know, man, this book, Remembrance of Moses, be getting me fired up, man. Verse 21, and for all this it may seem that overbearing forces of evil were now prepared to gain the upper hand all during the course of the earth. But at this time there were other decisions also being made, and forces of holiness being put in place also that would abide for the long duration as well. And you will see that in the end comes what may, and you will see at the end, come what may, the law of JESHURUN and those who walk in it will prevail to triumph over evil. And all that I heard the Lord say became a comfort to my soul. That's what Gokuram III said. The Lord brought a comfort to his soul when he's talking about the victory that we have won already when we just walk in the way. There is a reason why Asael is at war against the law of JESHURUN. It is his kryptonite. It's all of the Decadarchi's kryptonite. It's all of the fallen watchers' kryptonite. They are absolutely terrified of it, powerless to it. Verse 22, and I now see Yatsakad crying, standing over his son lying upon the ground, and he continued his mourning. And on the 7th day of this grief, he heard a voice calling out, and the voice was that of the Lord, and it called Gabriel. And Yatsakad answered, it is I only, Lord, only I am here. In our Remembrance of Enoch series, in the episode titled The First Great Division, we learned that Yatsakad received a new name, Gabriel. At this time, though, when the Lord is calling out to Gabriel, Yatsakad did not know his new name yet. Let's read that part again. He heard a voice calling out, and the voice was that of the Lord, and it called Gabriel. And Yatsakad answered, it is I only, Lord, only I am here. Yatsakad responded saying, only me here. It's only me here. Nobody by the name of Gabriel is here. It's only me. Let's keep reading. And the Lord asked, who are you? And Yatsakad was startled. Yeah, he was startled. How does the Lord not know who I am? That's what he's thinking. First, he's calling for Gabriel. He responds, no, it's just me, Yatsakad, the first man you ever created. And now the Lord says, who are you? Yatsakad was thrown for a loop with that one. Yatsakad was. But I want y'all to peep something. Yatsakad, who was Adam, knew the Lord's voice. Cain did not know the Lord's voice. Are we sure we know the Lord's voice? Because there are lying spirits out there. Let's get back to it and keep reading. And the Lord asked, who are you? And Yatsakad was startled. And he said, I am Yatsakad, the first man to make a pathway upon the earth, and the first man to counsel righteousness in creation. Yatsakad ran his resume to the Lord like, come on, Father, you know who I is. What did the Lord say? Verse 23, and the Lord answered, it is well spoken. How will you counsel your children, seeing you are the father, and your name is YASHAYA? And this message from the Lord sank deeply into the soul of YASHAYA, even to the center of his being. Bars. Did y'all peep how the Lord dropped wisdom on YASHAYA? It was ingenious. First, he called YASHAYA by a name he had not been given yet, right? Which made YASHAYA inform the Lord of who he was, right? By giving a name he knew. Then the Lord asked, who are you? Which was confusing to YASHAYA. Then YASHAYA told him who he was. Let's read it again. He said, I am YASHAYA, the first man to make a pathway upon the earth, and the first man to counsel righteousness in creation. That's the definition of his name, y'all. And the Lord responded, it is well spoken. How will you counsel your children, seeing you are their father and your name is YASHAYA? Ooh, I created you to do something, baby. The answer is in your name, YASHAYA. Look what it said next. And this message from the Lord sank deeply into the soul of YASHAYA, even to the center of his being. He caught that frisbee that the Lord sent him, huh? He caught that frisbee that the Lord hit him with. The Lord hit him with a series of questions that he knew the answer to, and the answers to those questions gave him the answer to his problem. YASHAYA was walking with the Noki said. He was walking with most of the lamb, not parallel, but with them. They were one. Precept, John chapter 17, verse 20 through 23. Neither pray I for these alone, but for them also which shall believe on me through their word, that they all may be one, as thou, Father, art in me, and I in thee, that they also may be one in us, that the world may believe that thou hast sent me, and the glory which thou gavest me I have given them, that they may be one, even as we are one, I in them and thou in me, that they may be made perfect in one, and that the world may know that thou hast sent me and hast loved them as thou hast loved me. The Lord wants us to walk together like YASHAYA walked with him. The Most High will listen to us like we listen to him. Oneness, family. And I remember the Enoch series, the episode titled The Council of Heaven. The Most High was walking with their Kodeshi. He listened to them with respect, knowing that they were capable. The Father wants us to listen to him, knowing he is capable. The Father wants us to listen to each other, knowing we are capable. That's walking as one, not separately. That's a deeper understanding, though. We gonna do that. We gonna deal with that. We gonna deal with that, right? We gonna deal with that fully. But Father willing, we ain't gonna do it today, but Father willing, we can attack that topic on this channel until we fully do get that understanding. That's right. It's the only way a marriage will truly work. It's the only way to make Yard and Zion a living entity. It's the only way to truly walk with God. It's to be one with him, walk with him. We have to really understand and think about what that means. Let's go back to the Remembrance of Moses, chapter 2. YASHAYA didn't think the Lord was up there sipping grapes when the Lord called him Gabriel. He didn't think the Lord had Alzheimer's when he told YASHAYA, who are you? No, he was striving to understand what the Lord was saying, and we got understanding. He got understanding, growth. We may hear the Lord, but do we understand what the Lord is saying? The Lord is trying to reach out and speak to us like he did with YASHAYA. Most of us ain't even paying no attention to hear him. But some of us hear, but we don't strive to understand. We have to practice with each other, and I bet we hear the Lord better. What a deep. We gotta practice with each other, and I bet we hear the Lord better. All right, the book of Remembrance of Moses, chapter 2, verse 24, let go. And it came to pass that YASHAYA pondered all that the Lord said to him, and he remembered vividly all the counsel the Lord had given them in Eden regarding using all the spirits of life that were put into all things according to the definition that they had received, and that to do contrary to this was rebellion against Enoch, he said. Everything, including us human beings, were created with the definition, y'all, a purpose. In the ancient times, the beginning, ones waited days before they named their child, so they could name them according to their created purpose. The Spirit would inform them. YASHAYA named all of his children in that ancient way, so he understood all of his children's created purpose. So we are starting to understand how he divided his sons. Remember that in Deuteronomy, he divided his sons, right? Okay, let's keep reading. And in the night, in the night he went walking, and the moon is full, and he is on the path that leads to the lower pool, and he intends to go there to be with Moses the Lamb, who is the man in all things, and who is in the living water. And I see the moonlight shimmering upon the pool, and in his pondering, his thoughts were to the Lord, and the Spirit said, heretofore ye have always considered to use the spirits of life in creation as elements of righteousness. Okay, y'all, look. Let's read that again so we can get understanding. And the Spirit said, heretofore ye have always considered to use the spirits of life in creation as elements of righteousness. When we know what a specific entity was created for, what it feels, we can use it for righteousness. For example, when a woman knows that chocolate feels personal bonding, when she is trying to bond with her child or her husband or whoever, she can include chocolate to influence that in righteousness. That's an example of using something as an element of righteousness, right? Let's keep reading. But are not the spirits of but are not the spirits of life expressed in your children, righteousness also to be used properly? And upon this advice, by the power of the Spirit, YASHAYA stood up with his arms outstretched, and he softly sang a song of praise, and the Lord calls it the Song of Gabriel. Woo! Bro, that boy Gabriel was happy. He started singing. The Spirit gave full understanding of what the Lord put on his mind. The Spirit told him, you can use your children as righteous element as well, YASHAYA. So we are getting closer to understanding how he divided his sons to establish the law of JESHURUN, right? Through thy precepts, we get understanding. There, right? Verse 26. And YASHAYA determined that he will use his sons as the element of righteousness to establish a holy pathway back to Eden and into the presence of Enoch, said. And he said there will be a pathway of righteousness and the way that is straight. That's the straight gate. Hamashiach spoke of that straight gate, ain't he? In the New Testament, y'all remember? Let's get it again. We don't went there before. We're going to go there again. Matthew chapter 7, verse 13 through 14. Enter ye in at the straight gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat. Because straight is the gate, and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. Because straight is the gate, and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. I'm trying to be one of the few that find it, family. I want my house to be some of the few that find it, family. I want y'all to be part of the few that find it, family. Real talk, real spit, real Judah. Back to the book of Remembrance of Moses. We're in chapter 2, verse 27. And he said, I have chosen my path, and my path leads to righteousness. And Enoch said, has created me to do this, and he gave me this task. And it is what I have lived in the temple world to do. And each of my sons have been given a purpose in creation and a name that defines it. And I shall prepare now to use them as my element of righteousness, to establish for Enoch, he said, his pathway back to Eden. So YASHAYA is using his agency to bring salvation to mankind. One of the two decrees of creation. Y'all remember that? He has authority to do this because he knows the will of the Father. That's why YASHAYA called it Enoch says pathway back to Eden. Y'all see that? Yeah, right. Verse 28. And the Lord was waiting for him at the upper pool, and YASHAYA told him of his plans. And the Lord said, as you do these things, you will be dividing the righteous from the wicked. Y'all hear that? The first great division. Y'all go back and check that episode out in the Remembrance of Enoch series. We all need to fully understand these things. Real talk. Let's start verse 28 over. And the Lord was waiting for him at the upper pool, and YASHAYA told him of his plans. And the Lord said, as you do these things, you will be dividing the righteous from the wicked. And from that I understand that since the beginning, walking on this pathway is a vital force that both gathers the righteous together and separates the wicked into separate camps in the eyes of all those in the alliance of heaven. Y'all see that? Let's read that part again. Let's read it one more time. And from that I understand, this is Gokram the third speaking, right? And from that I understand that since the beginning, walking on this pathway is a vital force that both gathers the righteous together and separates the wicked into separate camps in the eyes of all those in the alliance of heaven. We're going to learn about that path today, family. Yes, we is, right? Let's read verse 29. And the Lord went on to say to YASHAYA, your division will be sorely pressed during the course of the earth, but help will come, and there will arise a strong one who will also divide in creation, and he will write helps upon stones that will support this division you will make. That person is Enoch. We are reading about them divisions that he did that are supporting the division YASHAYA did. We reading about that right now, or we just got through reading about them in our Remembrance of Enoch series, It said he was gonna ride on stones, right? What he's the scribe of righteousness? Yeah, that's Enoch they talking about right there. Let's keep reading. And after him one will arise who will finish the pathway in its final expression by establishing the fruit of the tree of life. And he will be one whose name will declare that the one who guides will be all righteousness. This person will be Shem, who is Melchizedek. And what he established was Shabuah. Yeah. Let's keep reading. And by this pathway which you will establish, many will choose to not walk in the way of corruptions that are among the people of that day. Walking in the pathway of Jeshurun is how we choose not to walk in corruptions that are among the world. Verse 30, and it came to pass that on a certain morning, YASHAYA called all of his family to come together. Hey, y'all, that certain morning was Shabuah, the day of instruction. But he ain't know it. Let's start verse 30 over. And it came to pass that on a certain morning, YASHAYA called all his family to come together, and he sent word to all their dwelling places. And he said, when the sun is at its height in the sky just above the horizon, we will assemble at the upper pool. And he informed them of the task that lay ahead for them. And many wondered at his words, because at this time there was no form of worship that all the people did together. And his idea of using people as the element of righteousness was new to them. And some began to understand that people stand before, Enoki said, like all creation, and they each have a definition in righteousness. And they all began to think about their names. They all began to think about the names they had been given. So at first it sounded strange that their father YASHAYA was calling them to do some ceremony, right? But when they thought about it, it started to make more sense. Verse 31, and I began to look as they were assembling, and I could discern that upon the hillside above the terrace that held the upper pool, there lay stones of Asael. And Asael and the spirits of his fellows remained after Kenet, left to look at all that would transpire under the hand of YASHAYA. And they looked narrowly upon all they saw, and the evil ones could not anticipate the strength of the powers of holiness that were about to be set in place by our first father. So Asael and other fallen watchers stayed back to see what was going on with YASHAYA. They were paying close attention, fam, to everything that was being done. But the power what was being established went way over their head. They weren't ready for it. They ain't know about that. Verse 32, and all the spirits of evil looked upon YASHAYA as the least of all men, because he was so gentle and quiet, and his speech was not as other people, because he often chose to speak only the words he heard from the mouth of Enoki said in Eden. But you will see that our first father was indeed one of the most spiritually powerful men of the Holy Order ever to come into that order. Woo! That's deep to me. It boggles my mind. He was considered least last place by the Decadarchi, the fallen watchers, because he was gentle and quiet. Most of the world, especially here in America, have taken on that perspective. But what did Gokuram say? Gokuram III, what did he say? Our first father was indeed one of the most spiritually powerful men of the Holy Order ever to come into that order. Verse 33. And starting with his first memory in Eden, he had lived all his life in the face-to-face presence of Enoki said, and by his righteousness and obedience, he was a principal force to transform Olam into Eden. And from what I have seen of him and with Urim, I doubt that he or Kavah ever sinned again after they left. And most of his repentance was not for sins, but for being able to always walk in the perfect way of Enoki said. We don't only repent for sins, we can also repent to cause peace, to bring understanding. Repentance means to change direction, and all righteous repentance is spiritual currency, y'all. Man. Verse 34, and it came to pass that his sons all came with their families except Kenet, for at this time all his family had departed away, and the breakup of the people was very frightening, because nothing like it had ever happened before. And all the human beings they knew had all lived in the same place since the beginning, and it seemed that it could not be known what would happen to someone who went out into unknown regions, and no one knew what could be found in places where people had never been. And so the breakup of the family had deep and lasting effects. And so the breakup of the family had deep and lasting effects. And the enemy knows this, y'all. He saw it then, so he still uses it now as a weapon to bring mankind down, right? It's important that we understand these things and fight against the wiles of the devil. Verse 35, and I saw Yashakai and Kavah weeping. For them it felt like life was overtaking them. And I see the family of Kenet departing, and two little children are tearfully waving goodbye to each other. And one who is staying is the grandson of Chathan, named Rashuya. And the one who is leaving is the granddaughter of Kenet, named Aku. And only Enoki said knew the meaning of their goodbyes. And I know that they are the rightful companions for one another, and that by the hand of Enoki said, they will find each other in a future day, and they will perform wondrous works of righteousness for him. And thus, in the wonderful grace and compassion of Enoki said, the two camps will come back together for good. And in their union, evil will once again be subdued. And surely this must be a part of the grace Motza has for Kenet, Rashuya, and Aku. That's a story for another day, family. Let's keep reading. Verse 36. And it came to pass that I could feel that all the people had in their minds this new development of separation as they came to this assembly being summoned by their old father. And somehow they could all sense that their coming together would address this new development in the family. And Yashakai was being a true father under these circumstances. So while evil was using this tragic murder to formulate new identities, the righteous were also setting in place the very foundations that will come to answer and block anything evil could do. And a new identity called the Holy Order was being formed, and Yashakai had the new name of Gabriel, and the awareness that each person has a vision of creative purpose became a new identity to the righteous. We all need to recognize that each person has a vision of creative purpose, y'all. We should all be striving to find what that vision is so that we can walk in it. But we gonna get there. Yeah, we gonna get there. Verse 38. Now understand that all the people who left there were not evil, but because of the shame, it was felt that the whole family had come under the cloud of it, and some felt shame as a family, and the shame was so new and unexpected that it overpowered them, and when they left, the feelings of shame literally went out with them, and everyone could feel it leave, and Semi-Haza went with them to follow his lust. Wow. So actions of Kenet, who was Cain, affected his whole family. It put shame on his whole family. That shame gave Semi-Haza entrance into his holy family, his whole family, right? right? Until they put away that shame. Today we are learning the effects unrighteousness can bring to our individual selves and our whole entire family. We are seeing what unrighteous feelings can do to us, family. How it can empower Semihaza, Satan, right? Verse 39. And so the spirit of expectation surrounded all who assembled at the summons of their old father. And YASHAYA began to address all his remaining children, and he brought words of comfort to them. And he said, children, we all yet remain in the presence of Enoch, he said, and we will carry on with our lives together with him in creation like we always have. And the world will not change for us like it did when the stone of Motzor the decadent fell into Eden. Hey y'all, Motzor the decadent is Semihaza, and he is the meteor that fell into Eden. Right? Let's keep reading. And the world will not change for us like it did when the stone of Motzor the decadent fell into Eden. I am your father, and I have called you here to counsel both you and all creation, and we will identify and set in place this day your pathway back to Eden to safeguard all of us against continued separation, and you will all follow this pathway faithfully. Walking in this pathway protects us from our families breaking up. A sickness that plagues our Israelite nation. Yeah, right. Let's keep reading. And everything will be well with us. And I know his happiness will follow with us on our righteous pathway. And by this means, your children and your children's children will be happy. And life, it will be happy and live their gifts of life and well-being together upon the earth. And YASHAYA continued, and he said, I have determined that the pathway back to Eden will have 12 ways which we will mark that will always ensure that all who walk in the way will be guided in their walking, so they will not stray and be lost to their gifts of life. And Enoch said, has told me that we all will end our journey here in this world someday, and we will return to Eden, and our pathway is our safeguard that will not lose our way. And YASHAYA ended his little speech. This pathway that YASHAYA established is very important, and I understand that it's very important that we learn it and how to walk in it. We got to learn that too. Let's read. And I see the place where the pathway is to be established, and water is flowing over the brink to form the upper pool. So y'all, the cover photo of this episode is what YASHAYA is describing here, right? Y'all look at that and see what he's talking about. Let's start verse 41 over. And I see the place where the pathway is to be established, and water is flowing over the brink to form the upper pool, flowing from east to west. It continues flowing west to fall over another brink to form the lower pool, and it is a double waterfall. And on the north side of the upper pool there is the cavity in the rock that is the residence of YASHAYA and Kava. We read about this cavity in the rock in our Remembrance of Enoch series. I believe it was the episode titled The Original Sin Part 2. I think that's which one it was, right? Let's keep reading. And the water of the pool is just a few steps out from their entryway. And looking south, there is a large expanding terrace between the pools extending southward. And I can see dwellings made of grass in the distance, and the terrace gets wider as it's seen to the south. And on the south of the upper pool, close by, there is a large tree growing against the brink, over which the water flows to form the lower pool. And this tree is a large old oak tree, and its shadow in the afternoon sun spreads itself gracefully across the terrace, and all the people are assembled in the shadow of the tree. And YASHAYA said, the Spirit Kahi has told me that each of us have a righteous definition from Enoch said, like this old tree. Y'all hear that? YASHAYA said the Spirit, which is Kahi, has told him that each of us have a righteous definition from Enoch said, like the old tree, like the old oak tree that they are standing by. So watch this. What we gonna do? Let's go to the handbook of established righteousness, right? We'll see what the oak tree feels. What's its definition? I'm going to page 85 under a general oak tree, right? Oak trees feel strength. So this tree that they are establishing, right, or that they're using to establish this righteousness, this tree that they're using to establish righteousness feels strength. right? Feel strength. Y'all get that, huh? This oak tree that they are establishing the pathway of Jeshurun feels strength. So that tree would also be considered righteous element used in the ceremony. You dig? Let's keep reading. And just like we use this tree according to the spirit of life, it has been given all of us can use our lives according to the spirit of life we have been given. And so this day I will use my sons according to their names to show the way upon the path of righteousness. And I see Yatsakad pointing and showing each man where to stand on the edge of the shadow of the tree. And all the people know the meaning of what he is doing because they now see their names to be expressing who Anoki said made them to be. And he lined up his sons starting on the southwest side and moving around to the northwest side. And he and Kavah sat in the middle upon sheepskins. And each man stood upon a sheepskin with his family seated around about him. And each man stood and faced the middle. And Yatsakad went out one at a time and sprinkled element on their feet and spoke to them individually. The element Yatsakad sprinkled on their feet feels something that will help them on their walk. And they who he is sprinkling this righteous element on represents us. Watch, y'all gonna see. Let's keep reading. And all were very quiet to listen. And I see that the two in the east had their feet beside a little stream seeping out of the cliff going into the pool. Like I said, y'all can look at the cover photo to see what Gokuron III was seeing right there, right? A little sketch right there, verse 46. And I am very interested to hear what Yatsakad will say as he performs this ceremony, because he is a man of few words, and I have never witnessed him speaking the deeper things on his mind. And to me, he represents the ultimate expression of pure righteousness coming out of Eden. And I have for a long time wanted to know how he thinks and how such a pure and righteous mind conceives of creation in relation to Anoki said. And we have learned that the eternal truth of Anoki said can best be described by his and Kavah's view of the world. The eternal truth of Anoki said can be described best by Yatsakad and Kavah's view of the world. Why? Their view was the least tainted, if tainted at all, from the original view of Anoki said. Another reason the book of remembrance of Enoch is so important, because Motsa is giving us their view in that book. RealJudah.com, family. Go there for links to these books, man. Tomorrow ain't promised, family. Yeah. Elect yourself. Don't neglect yourself. You feel me? For real. Verse 47. And it came to pass that Yatsakad addressed Anoki said, and the strong presence of their father at the edge of eternity swept heavily in upon the assembly, and wiped away all fear and sorrow that had been so hard upon them with the breakup of the family. Woo! The presence of Anoki said wiped away all the feelings that were not of Anoki said. The strong presence of Anoki said did that. Let's keep reading. And Yatsakad walked out from the center and stood before Asher. And he said, Asher, my son, every rock in this brook of Simcha is where Anoki said has placed it. And every tree is growing in the place where Anoki said has given it. And the hills and valleys likewise. But he gave you feet. And he placed your feet upon the earth, and all these living spirits in creation without feet remain where they have been placed. And man alone has been given to have dominion over creation. And we can move rocks and plant trees and move with our feet to choose which hill or valley to walk on. And more importantly, we can choose which pathway our spirit travels upon. And it is the desire of Anoki said that all the feet of his children walk on the pathway that lead to life and happiness, and that each and every one of them find their way back to live with him. And in my life, I have come to know that all pathways do not lead to him, and some become lost without a way. And the spirit of life in each person is known to be just the way they have been created, and they are not alike, because Anoki said has so many ways that please his heart, and he delights in the great variety and creation of all things. My walk may not be like your walk, family. I might make music, you might make pottery. I might be more outspoken, you might be a little more quiet. It don't mean we both can't walk on this pathway back to Eden, right? Verse 50. So each person must find the path of righteousness in their own way, but there's only one pathway that leads back to Enoki said. There's only one pathway that leads back to Eden. One gate, family. One narrow path. Let's keep reading. And as your feet are upon the ground in the shadow of this old tree, they represent the feet of every human soul in their rightful place upon the earth to commence in the pathway of righteousness. And Enoki said has created all mankind to be happy, and he wants his house to be filled with the sounds of life coming from his many happy children. And you, my son, will live to be happy, and your feet will serve you well because of this pathway which you have chosen. Right there, the 12 sons of Adam's feet, or the 12 sons of Yashaya's feet, represent every human soul's rightful place in the pathway of righteousness. Right now, we're reading the division of Adam's sons, of Yashaya's sons that we read about in Deuteronomy, right? We're getting understanding that the Bible, it didn't really give us, and we got brothers and sisters that do their best with what they can, but now we getting on the real understanding of what that means. Yashaya said his son will live to be happy, and his feet will serve him well because of the pathway he chose, right? And that's the same with all of us if we choose the pathway of JESHURUN. Verse 51, and I could feel that many who were there upon hearing these words thought about the pathway, or thought upon the pathway that the family of Connect must now be on and where it might lead. And many a prayer went out in their behalf, and Kavah felt helpless in her task of joining, and she rocked back and forth in her grieving. But when Yashaya was done with Asher, she sat up straight with a new confidence in the happiness of her children on the pathway of righteousness. Woo! So Asher represented the first waymark, which is you, your individual creative purpose, your vision. And when we walk in our vision, it brings true happiness. Let's keep reading. And Yashaya went out from the center again, and he went to Azan, and he said, Azan, you are my help and my strength. Azan, your breath is your life. For when Enoki speaks his words of loving kindness, you breathe in the breath that formed his words. Woo! Man, hey, that boy Yashaya he deep, man. I like how he put his thoughts together. Like it's like, of course, he the oldest man to walk this thing. He got all the wisdom, right? But I'm just saying, it feel good when he speaks. Like it's a beautiful display of words that he putting together here, right? But this is what he said, though. He said, when we speak according to the Spirit, we're speaking the words of the Father. Breath is ruach in the Hebrew, spirit, right? Let's keep reading. And the breath of Enoki gives life to your soul. And there are others who choose the breath of those who speak angry and hateful words. But your heart has ears, and your chest knows whose breath you are breathing. Man, y'all, this is very convicting to me, right? Let's read that again, family. And the breath of Enoki gives life to your soul. And there are others who choose the breath of those who speak angry and hateful words. But your heart has ears, and your chest knows whose breath you are breathing. I have to be more like Azan. You feel me? Be mindful always, right? Speak in the Spirit no matter what the circumstances around me are. Man, y'all, that's deep. That's one of them swords that cut, right? Verse 53. And just as the wind blows across the hills, the breath of the word of Enoki blow along the pathway back to Eden. And when you know that in your chest you are not breathing the breath of his words, you can know to look to find a righteous pathway again. And it is in the word of his power to love you that will lead you in the way. And thus it is expedient that all the children of the righteous repent for any time they find words or thoughts that are angry or hateful. And he placed Harari upon the feet of Azan, and he blessed his feet to always walk in the way, being led by the breath of Enoki Man, hold up. Y'all are gonna be able to see the waymarks you need to work on. When we dealing right here reading this, man, we are not all dealing with the same thing. But when we get these 12 ways down, we all will be walking in perfection of way. perfect virtue, right? The second waymark that Zion represented was the Spirit. We are to always walk in the Spirit with all we do. How we speak, how we act. Enoki said it's in every breath. We got to remember that when we speak. For real, for real. Let's keep reading. Verse 53. And he went again to the center to be with Kavah, and he moved out towards Elah, and he took Kavah with him, and he said, my son Elah, your waymark on the righteous pathway is to walk cautiously and to protect and guard the truth of the words of Enoki said, and lay claim to it and not let go, and examine everything in your heart and listen to the truth, and gently urge your fellows to cling to the truth. And Kava, standing in her place beside him, stretched out her arms and sang some of her song, and she laid hold of the gift of discernment and bestowed it upon Elah, and she touched his forehead with two of her fingers, and she said, for those who walk in the truth, evil has many surprises that can catch them unaware, and they are called lies. And you must watch with diligence and care to protect the truth. And the truth does not change, but always remains to be found in loving kindness on the holy pathway in the breath of Enoki said. And his parents returned to the center. Beautiful. Beautiful. Both of their words were so beautiful. The truth always remains the same. Christ said the truth will set you free. We are supposed to protect the truth. That is the third waymark, represented by Elah. Protection of the truth. Quick recap, y'all. The first waymark, your vision. The second waymark is the Spirit. Everything we do, we must be done in the Spirit, right? The third waymark is protection. We are to diligently protect the truth. Y'all write these things down. Life-changing. I'm telling y'all, these books are salvational issues, right? This is the real 12-step program, family. Real talk. Verse 56. And it was now the place of Mabuchi to be addressed. And Yashakai went out to him, and he was young and tall. And Yashakai embraced him, and they both wept for a moment together. Mabuchi was one of the sons of Mattaniah, Abel. So this was a very heavy moment, seeing that the murder of his father is really what led to this ceremony. That right? Let's keep reading. And Yashakai said, you are a son to me. Now for your father is no more. And Enoki said is your father, and a lovely one who will lead you to walk beside still waters, and the waters of sweetness will gird you up all your days. And in time he will bring you and your family to a land of lustrous waters that shine with the light of peace and tranquility. And the righteous pathway is one of such joys. And Motza, the Lamb, will be your shepherd, and he is the living water that goes out with you. Motza is the living water. Christ, Hamashiach, Yashaya, Yahawashai, Yeshua, Jesus, him. Whatever you call him, he is the living water. Let's keep reading. Verse 57. And I have somewhat to instruct you this day, and know that living water flows, and it is the flowing it carries, and in its flowing it carries life along with it, and it can cleanse if it is followed in its journey. And it begins each little journey anew by bringing into your mind advice of correction. And when correction is openly made welcome, then the right steps upon the pathway are known, and when taken, they lead you back to the peace and tranquility of your shepherd's embrace. And you will find repentance to be sweet like a drink of cool water, of cool clear water in the heat of the day. And by these words and with this instruction and prophecy, Mabuchi was comforted, and he sat back upon the ground being content. Man. The fourth waymark is the living water, reproval, and accepting reproval and making the changes concerning those reprovals. That's what Christ is all about. That's why Motza is the living water. He is the way, the correct way. And by us studying his example, we can get on and remain on the right course. Let's keep reading. This is going in. Verse 58. And once again, Yashakai went out from the center, and he approached Zerah, who was holding the little baby Seth in her arms. Azura is Seth's future wife, y'all. Azurah is the twin sister of Nephi, Mattaniah, you know, Abel, his wife. Remember Mattaniah? Yeah, Abel. Kened, which is Cain, also wanted to marry her. He wanted to marry Azurah too. You remember he wanted the twins for the shine, right? Let's start verse 58 over. And once again, YASHAYA went out from the center, and he approached Azurah, who was holding the little baby, Seth, in her arms. And he said, "You are the son of my repentance and my forgiveness. The Lord has forgiven me for my failures as a father, and I have felt like all the sins of my children must be laid upon me as a burden, and I have accepted my burdens. And your waymark on the pathway of righteousness is one that will find your feet being washed in newness by the morning dew upon the grass. And you are a brother to the grasses of the field. And as the rocks of the field are my witness, you shall find the words of the breath of Enoch said to be written upon a stone, and his words of forgiveness will go forth to all the world, written upon a stone. And because of the truth your stone will bring to this pathway of righteousness, the truth will be known, and the eyes of many will be opened to a knowledge of their forgiveness. And your ministry of service to Enoch, said, my baby son, will bless and comfort those who have lost their way upon the pathway back to Eden. And the grass of the field will dance in their joy." And YASHAYA kissed baby Seth, and he said, "May all who behold the stone of this little son come to know that they are loved and forgiven for their sins and be blessed forever." Man, that boy YASHAYA, man. Say that. Man, the stone that Seth found, really, his wife Azurah found it. That stone is the repentance tablet, which is in the first part of the book of Remembrance of Enoch, the book of Seth. So the prophecy made by YASHAYA came true. The fifth waymark that Seth represented is forgiveness. The knowledge that we can be made clean is a motivation for repentance. So when we follow the living water, it brings us to forgiveness. Amazing. Let's step. Man. These steps are amazing, family. They're very impressive. They're very impressive. And just tell me what y'all hear that's wrong. Tell me that's wrong to your spirit. When you walk in this form, in this fashion, it's righteousness. It's virtue. Let's keep moving. Verse 60. And continuing on, YASHAYA came out to stand before Edra, and he took both his hands in his, and he said, "My good son Edra, these hands of yours are holy, and they are made to bless and to touch injured places with tenderness to heal them. And you are to bless the food of the people to make it sacred. And a hand of kindness reaching down to lift up the fallen is like the hand of Enoch said himself. And your hands will act in his behalf to love the fallen and the lost and those in distress that sin brings in with shame. And you and Pethuah are messengers bringing gentle reproof. And the light of Enoch said will shine on others like a fire of shining, healing. And you are one who is to love in spite of sin. And you are to bring the voice of the fire to the people and teach them the skills of compassion for those who are groping to find their way like a stranger to Enoch said. And your guide will be Motza, and your guide will be Motza the Lamb himself, and his presence will cover the two of you like a mantle of healing." And YASHAYA placed healing stones in their hands and blessed their hands, and he closed their hands upon the stones and prayed a little prayer. This is another one that convicts me. I mean, I'm good and I struggle with it at the same time. When I struggle with it, it showcases my bout with pride. But YASHAYA gave Edra some sound advice. Once again, we must use Motza as our example. In our Remembrance of Enoch series, Edra was the elder who saved his village from the fire. You remember, I don't know if y'all can remember that. One of the youngsters came and told Enoch, when Enoch asked, "How did your village survive this fire?" The youngster told Enoch that their father Edra controls the fire. We dealt with that episode we dealt with that account in the episode titled Enoch and their Kodeshi, right? Very good episode. The information in there was very interesting and powerful, right? So check out this. The sixth waymark represented by Edra is power, or loving in spite of sin. Gentle reproof is something I'm trying to learn. You dig? It's like, man, when we learn to master it, It's just gonna be a great quality to have. It's a quality needed to walk in his waymark, right? Compassion is another quality needed to walk in his waymark. Loving in spite of sin. We live in a time that's gonna be very necessary. It's gonna be a very necessary quality to walk in. Let's go and have another quick recap, right? The first waymark is you, your vision of creative purpose. The second waymark is spirit, doing everything in the spirit, right? The third waymark is protection, protecting the truth. The fourth waymark is the living water, Christ, taking reproval and practicing repentance, right? The fifth waymark is forgiveness. When we follow the living water to repentance, it also brings us to forgiveness, right? Makes us new. The sixth waymark is power, loving in spite of sin, having compassion, and a gentle reproof for one struggling to find their way, right? Let's keep rolling. Verse 61. And YASHAYA stood before Eli again, and he said, you are standing here to take the place of my son Kenneth, who was born to you. He was born to us as a sweet reed, and all of the waymarks of this pathway of righteousness that will lead mankind back to Eden. You are to be the most firmly rooted and tenacious to your sacred service to Enoki said, so that Enoki said can be known and his truth can come to the heart of men, and you are to relay the words of counsel and truth resident in the Area Kodeshi to the people, and teach the people to pray to Enoki said in all their joys and cares and needs for wisdom and understanding. And you are the first person to be born upon the temple earth, and as such you are to be a way for the people to come close to the holiness of Eden in their knowledge and understanding. And you are to walk among the trees, for they are clothed with glory. And you are a brother to the trees of the heights, and they each one are your brothers and sisters in the truth of Enoki said. And you are to take care not to turn to the right nor to the left of this waymark, for there can come many enticing subtleties, calling one to believe a lie. So carefully divide the truth and cling to your father. Enoki said at every step of the way to protect his truth, and he stooped down and drew sand around the feet of Allah to separate his steps from the steps of the wicked. Around the feet of Eli, his name is Eli, right? Sand feels dividing, you know what I'm saying, from the righteous and the wicked, right? The seventh waymark is glory, knowledge and understanding of the Father, the truth of the Father, the true way of the Father, glory. The seventh waymark, the act of teaching and showing the true way to the people. Let's keep reading. And the vision was long, so we rested and came back in a few days to continue with Urim. And I beheld once again the ceremony under the tree beside the pool. And YASHAYA and Kavah are still in the center. And now I can see that they represent the star of Elder in the center of the tablet. Y'all, let's read the footnote right here, so we can understand why YASHAYA and Kavah represent the star of Elder. How they represent the star of Elder lies in why they are establishing JESHURUN. First, they are establishing the holy pathway for Enoki said, loving him first. Then they counsel each one to bless them to walk in the way, loving your fellow second. Thus, they represent the first and second commandment upon which the whole law hangs. Right? Powerful. Powerful, powerful, powerful. Okay, let's keep going. Let's start verse 64 over. And I beheld once again the ceremony under the tree beside the pool, and YASHAYA and Kavah are still in the center. And now I can see that they represent the star of Elder in the center of the tablet. And he approached Nefesh in the place of his waymark on the holy straight pathway. And he said, my little son Nefesh, when your father Mattaniah was very young, he always wanted me to tell him what happened in Eden. And I rehearsed to him the story of the account when Moses asked us to go into the water with him and covenant with him that we would always love him and repent of our daily sins. And if we were careful to do that, he would lead us back into Eden to live with Enoki said. And so he entered into the water when he was a young man, following our example. And the promise of being led back to live with Enoki said burned brightly in his heart. And it has been a year now with the seasons coming back again since your father was ended. And before he was ended, he told me that Moses had visited him and told him that his time to live here in the temporal world would end. And the Lord Moses touched him, and he said, you are my righteous one, and I stand to declare to you that you will breathe again and stand with me. And so your father named you Nefesh, which means to breathe again. And we do not know how he will accomplish that for us, because your father's bones still lie upon the ground. And I know that the hope of living past our walk here in this world sustains your mother and I in our sorrow as we wonder about the meaning of our lives. And so the place you stand this day is the shadow of the tree. In the shadow of this tree is the waymark that marks our everlasting hope of returning back to Eden again. And it is a place of faith and believing in things we do not know or understand. And little Nefesh, you are also now my son this day, and I will be a father to you all your days. Man. The 8th waymark is resurrection, y'all. It's what walking in the way of JESHURUN leads to: resurrection in the life to come, and resurrecting in this life by becoming a new creature, becoming what we were created to be, right? Verse 68, and YASHAYA went out again to approach my car, and he said to him, your vision, the reason Enoki said made you, is for you to always walk in the midst of the elements of righteousness. So everything you eat and wear and the things your hands do to make your dwelling place to live and where you walk will be for you like the bread of life, to contain within themselves the presence of the man who is in all things. And in this way, the spirit and the presence of the man who is one of the 4 spirits of life that is in all things will walk with you in the way of righteousness. And you will find that in your future days, Motza will be your anchor, attaching you to the pleasant things of Eden. And my car, your place before Enoki said, is one of provision. You are to be a provider of both the temporal things and the spiritual. And you will one day stand by a pool of heaven, just like the one here with us, and it will gush forth spiritual provisions for many people. And the news that comes to your pool of heaven will be sent abroad in the earth to enlighten the way of many, and you will find rich happiness with me in the end of your days. The 9th waymark, y'all, is the bread of life. Getting to know Motza in all the presence of getting to know Motza in all things, right? Getting to know the presence of Motza Christ in all things is the bread of life. Walking in this waymark provides provisions for both spiritual and physical things. Abraham could find wells. Motza could give food where nobody knew where it came from because they were in tune with the bread of life, Christ in all things. Let's do another quick recap though, right? The first waymark is your vision or creative purpose. The second waymark is the spirit. We should do everything in the spirit, right? The third waymark is protection, protecting the truth. The 4th waymark is the living water. Motza is the living water, reproof and repentance. The 5th waymark is forgiveness. Following that living water brings us to forgiveness. The 6th waymark is power, loving in spite of sin, having compassion for one struggling to find their way. The 7th waymark is glory, spreading the truth of the man and keeping the truth of the Father. The 8th waymark is resurrection. Walking in the way of JESHURUN will lead to new life, both in this life and the life to come. The 9th waymark is the bread of life, knowing Christ in all things, right? Let's keep moving. 3 more waymarks to go. Verse 70, and it came to pass that the shadow had moved when he came out to Chathan, and YASHAYA had him move a little to be standing in the shadow again. And YASHAYA raised his hand upwards towards heaven. He said, my beloved son Chathan, your inheritance from Eden, and you're called to serve. Enoki says to see that the example Enoki said put in place when he married your mother and I in Eden will continue to be practiced and viewed as the utmost righteousness in the earth. And what he established with us in the sacredness of marriage will not fade away in memory, but be firmly established among your family and among all people. And you and all who are like you in the sanctity of marriage are to be the voice of all the male and female spirits of life upon the earth. And you are to speak for all the mothers and fathers in creation to see that their children are honored, preserved, and protected. And you are to come to their aid in all their times of distress, and feed and care for their orphans and their seeds, that they will not wither away. And they will feed your children, and see to it that they do not wither away with hunger nor neglect. And all the trees and animals and birds and insects and rivers with the stones of the earth are parents, and will be joined to you in your spirit as the example of holiness in marriage. And this is how the dominion of mankind can flourish in all the course of the earth. And the sanctity of marriage will undergird all the powers of heaven, extending clear into Elder, the dwelling place of Enoki said himself. And this is your waymark in the pathway to Enoki said. And the sounds emanating from the power of the sanctity of marriage will be the sounds of life that none can quiet, but they shall roar like the sounds of waterfalls. Shathan, who represents the 10th waymark, is who kept the tradition of marriage on the earth. Most of the earth stopped practicing the marriage Enoki said did for Yatsakah and Kavah in Eden. But Chathan's family kept it going until Edger reestablished it amongst the members of Yard in Enoch's time, right? The 10th waymark is family, which is strengthened by the sanctity of marriage. Walking in the walking in the waymarks helps become part of the family of Enoki said, right? It helps us become part of the family of Enoki said, right? That family consists of mankind, the Kodeshi, and the Father. Let's keep reading, verse 73. And when Yatsakah came out to Yakal, he had not been paying attention and had fallen asleep. Ooh, man. That definitely will have spiritual implications. We're going to get to that. Let's start verse 73 over. And when Yatsakah came out to Yakal, he had not been paying attention and he had fallen asleep. And Yatsakah did not awake him. And he said, Yakal, there will be a ferocious effort to come against all these waymarks on the straight pathway, and despair can come in as it has upon all of us. And you are counseled not to grow weary, but to endure in strength in your calling, and magnify endurance in the holiness of your marriage by entering into the repentance to never depart from the way, so that you will travel with the Lord Moses. And he goes out with you, and Moses will be like a shining beacon of rays coming through the clouds to shine upon the earth. And Yatsakah prayed soft and urgent prayers over his sleeping son. And I saw Kavah weeping as she sat in her place. Woo. The 11th waymark is endurance. Yatsakah there, he said there are going to be ferocious attempts to knock us off this path of righteousness, right? But we must endure. Moses said those who endure to the end will be saved, right? Let's move on to the next one. Verse 75. And Kodesh, your full name is Kodesh, because you are the one who upholds all those collected to live together in their ways of holiness. And in your way, there will always remain the hope of Eden upon the earth. And like me, you are one who is to instruct all the spirits of life on the earth in creation and how to walk and live in holiness. And all heaven will be there for you to strengthen you and to gather around you and to assemble themselves in your behalf. And Moses himself will come to walk upon the earth with your people, and they will be called Ma'im, the dwelling place of Enoki said, and all the holy spirits of life in creation. And that was the 12th waymark, family. Yeah. And the 12th and final waymark. And that is Zion, the community of the righteous, the community of the Father. Something else we're called to do, even in the Bible. Come out of her, my people. That's what it says. Huh? Come out of Babylon. Come out of the fallen angel system. Follow the ways of Yard and Ma'im, Zion, the Most High system. Oh, man. Let's list these 12 steps one more time. These 12 steps of the law. These 12 steps of the law of virtue. We're going to list it again so y'all can make sure y'all have it. The first waymark is you, your vision of creative purpose. The second waymark is the spirit. We should do all things in the spirit. The third waymark is protection. We should diligently protect the truth. The fourth waymark is the living water, reproval and repentance. The fifth waymark is forgiveness. Following the living water leads to forgiveness. The sixth waymark is power, loving in spite of sin, compassion for one struggling to find their way. The seventh waymark is glory, spreading the truth, knowledge, and understanding of the Lord. The eighth waymark is resurrection. Walking in the waymarks brings us to resurrection in this life and the life to come. The ninth waymark is the bread of life. This is knowledge of Christ in all things. The 10th waymark is the family which in essence is the sanctity of marriage, or rich relationship with mankind, the Eri Kodeshi, and the Father, right? The 11th waymark is endurance. The enemy will definitely try to knock us off this pathway. Endurance will allow Moshe to strengthen us through all adversity. And the 12th waymark is Zion, living in righteousness with creation and the righteous. Boom! Straight like that. I encourage everyone to know this like you know your telephone number. The law is life, The law of JESHURUN, the foundation of the law of virtue. That's what the law of JESHURUN is. The foundation of the law of virtue. Powerful stuff, family. Powerful stuff. Let's keep rolling. Verse 76. And it came to pass that all the people were weary for the long time YASHAYA was speaking, and they began to disperse. But YASHAYA and Kavah remained in their place, and the presence of Moshe drew near, and it wrapped itself around these two parents in gentle warmth. And our old first parents embraced him fully. And YASHAYA said to him, Dear Moshe, I have counseled my sons and all my children according to your desires, and I have presented them and to all the Eri Kodeshi the pathway in which they should walk, and they are free to choose their way. And I have marked 12 waymarks in the pathway to move them plain and easy to remember. And I have marked 12 waymarks in the pathway to make them plain and easy to remember. And all the heaven and earth are my witnesses. And YASHAYA looked about, and he said to creation, Always remember this day for my children, and be diligent to bring to mind these things that we have done here today. YASHAYA just said that to creation. Let's read that again. Verse 78, and YASHAYA looked about, and he said to creation, Always remember this day for my children, and be diligent to bring to mind these things that we have done here today. He asked the Eri Kodeshi, creation, our ecosystem, to bring these righteous ways to our memory, to our mind. So at all times, creation is trying to help us with our steps, even if it's just by walking in their steps in perfection away, right? Let's read. And I would ask you to record what I have established in heaven, and let all these things be known in Eden. And Comfort Enoki said to know that his children who choose the straight pathway will be coming home to him, and thus it is done. And thus it is done. Those who walk this truth will make it to Eden, paradise. That's right. That's for real, man. Gems right here, y'all. Verse 79, and it came to pass, as I was listening intently in wonder of all that came before me, I began to hear vast multitudes praising and lauding Enoki said for the graciousness of his fatherhood, because now there was a way, and it was plain to me that all heaven set themselves with firm resolve to see to it all was done according to the words of YASHAYA. And I was startled at the sounds of it, for in my mind I thought I was the only one listening, but all the course of heaven and earth was thus assembled to participate in this momentous event. Wow. This was no small thing YASHAYA did, y'all. It's a big deal to follow the way YASHAYA established. It's no wonder the enemy is doing everything for us, for Israel, us not to receive and walk in this way. Verse 80, and the Lord said to me, before the Urim, this is indeed a wonderful time. For the first man and woman who are in the holy order have established the law of my father, and they have set firmly in place the 12 waymarks of the pathway to Eden that shall endure through the whole course of the earth. The way that YASHAYA and Kavah established, the only way that has ever been, you know what I'm saying? That's the way they established. Thus saith the Most High. Thus saith the Lord. There ain't no other way. I hope y'all wrote that way down, because there ain't no other way. Let's keep reading. And these waymarks will not vary away, nor become dissipated with the passing of time. And they shall be brought out of obscurity in every needful time to be a sure way for the house of Israel and the peoples of the nations who are intermingled among the fallen and disobedient. And they have done this for me. This is for us, Israel. And all the peoples looking to truly walk with the Lord. YASHAYA did this to help the Lord and us and the righteous out. Man, big things. Big things what YASHAYA did, man. Big ups to that man YASHAYA, our first father. Verse 81, and I was much moved by all this that was before me. And in the days that followed, I saw YASHAYA and Kava sing the pipe song. And it was sung in remembrance of the burden of Moses and the assistance he now had with the way being established. And the Lord said, this song is my song of comfort. And Kava is singing it in a high tone. And YASHAYA is singing it in a lower tone. And they sing the verse 7 times, bowed down toward the north. And the people are collected around in 4 groups with their old parents in the middle, and there is a group in each of the 4 directions. And YASHAYA starts the song with only the east group joining in with the first verse. And the Lord said, the first verse is inviting the east, and all it feels with both me and my father, and all the other groups are quiet with just the east group singing. It was very interesting, y'all, to see JESHURUN III listening to the song with Urim, and it was man. And the way he was relaying it back to us, what he was hearing. Look, y'all, no studio, but that song YASHAYA and Kava and their village was still recorded. That song they were singing was still recorded in time. It's amazing. This whole Urim thing is amazing, man. Amazing. Woo. Verse 84. And in the second verse, the people in the south joined in to petition the south to add its feelings of both me and my father, to bring comfort and support. And in this way, with each verse, the song becomes louder with more voices joining in. This is Christ explaining the song to JESHURUN III. I have a feeling, y'all, we will be singing this song one day, Israel, for real. Let's read verse 84 again. And in the second verse, the people in the south join in to petition the south to add its feelings of both me and my father, to bring comfort and support. In this way, with each verse, the song becomes louder with more voices joining in. And this is repeated with each verse for all 4 directions. And on the 5th, those in the 4th station join in, and the song is sung toward heaven. And the 6th verse is sung to the earth, and the Eri Kodeshi join in. Finally, with the 7th verse, all heaven and earth sing to Moses himself, and I can feel his visage before my eyes. And I know all who are righteous and walk in the way can see him in their minds. And it came to pass that I pondered all the vision that had come before me, and I wondered how evil will respond. And I considered how all of this may affect our world. And the Lord said to me, now listen to the people. Woo! Man, yeah, y'all, this is about to get interesting. This is about to get interesting, right? Let's read what the footnote says right here. Listen to the people. Remember, at this time, the first grade 7ing is in progress. These Decadarchi, remember y'all, the Decadarchi are the fallen watchers. These Decadarchis are going to speak just what they hear from the wicked. The wicked are saying these things, y'all. The Decadarchi represent the wicked folks in the earth. So this next part of this episode is going to show us what the Decadarchi and the wicked feel about this law at JESHURUN. About this law of JESHURUN. Let's start verse 87 over. And it came to pass that I pondered all the vision that had come before me, and I wondered how evil would respond, and I considered how all of this may affect our world. And the Lord said to me, now listen to the people and to the forces of darkness allied with them, right? And there are 4 of the Decadarchi here who are noteworthy in the times ahead. And there is Asael, who now is named Belial, and Semihazah, who now is named Satan, and their 2 counselors, who are Ramel and Zakel. Look, y'all, Ramel is the fallen watcher that represents petroleum, and Zakel is the fallen watcher who represents generated electricity. Let's keep reading. Listen to what they will say and feel. And they are speaking in boisterous terms and bragging. And the feelings and presence of all this evil was such a contrast to what I had seen that I shrunk back. And these 4 evil ones were very unclean, and they were loathsome and putrid, and they felt like vomit. And I said, Lord, why must I hear these despicable words spoken against all things good? And he said, it is so the righteous who keep the law will know to identify their evils that will be brought to bear against them. Why is it important, y'all, for us to hear what we're about to hear? Let's read that again. So the righteous who keep the law will know to identify their evils that will be brought to bear amongst them. This is the evil that will come against us that try to walk in this way. It's easier to endure when you know what's coming. That's right, verse 89. And it was night when the evil ones gathered in the sacred place, and YASHAYA and Kava were asleep in their dwelling place, and I thought I could see angels standing by their entrance. Man. Protection for YASHAYA and Kava at all times. Why? They walked in the way of JESHURUN, and they had the sanctity of marriage. That's why. Right? We should take notes. Verse 90. And evil began to gather starting at the first waymark, your vision. And I could tell they were going to work their way around the waymarks from the first to the last. And their intention was to mock each one and make their wicked exclamations. Man, hold up, these cats. They about to start boasting and bragging. They're going to start talking about what they will and won't do, right? Y'all pay attention to the enemy's plan against righteousness and look at the world and see if they accomplish their plans. Remember, they are at the first waymark, your vision. Let's read. And I began to listen, and they were laughing and saying, we can change our definitions and we can decide our identities for ourselves in order to achieve our desires. And Noki said, does not live here, but we live here, and we shall rule over our own domain, and we will find our pathway pleasurable. Man, hold up. Remember, this is the Decadachi, the fallen watchers speaking for mankind, the wicked of mankind. So this is what the people say. Is it true? Let's read that again. Verse 91. And I began to listen, and they were laughing and saying, we can change our definitions and we can decide our identities for ourselves in order to achieve our desires. Anoki said, does not live here, but we live here, and we shall rule over our own domain, and we will find our pathway pleasurable. They can change their definitions. We got men acting like women and women acting like men. Look around. Y'all can go to our Remember Enoch playlist and check out the episode titled YASHAYA and Kava, Espousal and Marriage. We go over the roles of men and women, or the definitions of men and women. Are women still the helpmeet for their husbands? Ask yourself. Beautiful voices that sing for Satan, not the Most High. Yeah, I think they're accomplishing their plans, y'all. I think they are accomplishing their plans. Verse 92. And they moved to the second waymark, the Spirit. And they said, we have a spirit also that we can send abroad that people will obey. Has not Connect listened to our spirit? Is it not strong? Cannot our spirit command life and death? And Zakel danced a little, danced of delight, and said, there are bones upon the ground, and our breath will empower many to find dominance. Woo. Suicide is at all-time highs right now. What voice are people listening to? Women saying that they are independent. They don't need a man. What voices are they listening to? Parents are taking their children to have their gender altered. What spirit are they listening to? Yeah, I think their plan is working. Verse 93. And Asael moved to the third waymark, protection. And he said, it is foolishness to think you can protect what you call the truth. And the old parents are blind and grope to see imaginary things. And truth will be what we decide to make it. And we can repeat our truth over and over. And pretty soon we will be believed, and our way will be made clear for us. Look at the church. Almost all America believed Christ was a white man. They are changing the textbooks in schools to call our people who were forced to this country through slavery just immigrants. They use the news, movies, and lies to spread propaganda all over the world. Yeah, I think their plan is working. Verse 94, and Ramael Petroleum was the first to step over to the fourth waymark, the living water. And he said, we can cause that our filthy water can gush forth to overpower the weak and vulnerable. Water does not have to be clear and shining, and we have strong dark sentences, and by them we will come to sweep all things before us. I myself can flow out to govern the lives of men, and I am the pride master over all the earth. Y'all hear that? He is the pride master over all the earth. He said he can replace the living water with their filthy waters. Huh? In our Remembrance of Enoch series, we see that those filthy waters is witchcraft. I believe that episode was titled The Birth of Enoch. Huh? Is witchcraft running the world? Look at our churches burning incense to the dead. Look at the Israelite community. We got folks openly supporting witchcraft, voodoo, the Kabbalah, all these things. Yeah, I think their plan is working. Let's keep reading, verse 95. And when they come to the fifth waymark, forgiveness, they were hesitant and seemed confused and a little afraid. And I felt that the spirit of recompense was there to meet them. And I could see that Asael beheld their silence, and he asserted forgiveness is a myth, and sin and waywardness are simple accusations that have no substance, and our acts in secret cannot be known. Yeah. They fear what repentance brings, family. It brings forgiveness, a new man, a new woman that they can do nothing with. So they push that lie Asael just spewed out of his mouth. No one's, y'all. See, look, now ones don't have faith they can be forgiven. And if you try to reprove our people, they hit you with only God can judge me. Or they say you are accusing me. The ones... Man, y'all, this is crazy. They plan this thing. When you're reading what we're reading here, they plan these things. And not ones lie on God like he can't see them. Look around. Tell me I'm just talking. Yeah, I think they plan is working. Verse 96, and Zekiel generated electricity, approached first to the sixth waymark of the power to love in spite of sin, and his ignorance was made evident. And I can see that his alienation from creation was absolute, and alienation would follow all who desire and depended upon him. And he swelled up and he said, the earth is power, and we have power to overwhelm and control the conduct of all things according to our will. He's telling you they will use media in all its forms and fashions to control the behavior of the people. Look at the church. Every kind of church, even the Israelite community, is full of the over-righteous and hypocrisy. Folks with a beam in their eye talking about your moat. Yeah, I think their plan is working. Verse 97, and Asael was waiting at the seventh waymark, glory, and he was sitting there like he was a monarch, and much arrogance emitted from him like a beacon of superiority. And he said, who is God that any need to know about him? And we have heard nothing from him. Why should he tell us anything? For I myself will rise up to be like the Most High, and I shall be a son of God. Look at your Bible. That's what we have been talking about on this channel. The false character of God they have perpetrated, that they have perpetuated. In our Remembrance of Enoch series, we had an episode titled The Original Concept of God. In there we get the true character of the Most High. The Bible teaches about a vengeful God, a terrible power, a God full of wrath. Asael was waiting at the glory waymark, sitting like he was the King of Kings. Israelites on the corner cursing ones out, slapping folks, talking about they are men of God. Asael sitting like a monarch, like he's King of Kings. He actually said it, for he will rise up and be like the Most High. Yeah, I think they plan is working. Verse 98. And on the eighth waymark at the resurrection, they all stopped to ponder there, and they spoke together, and they concluded there will not be a day of recompense, for there was none in Edom For there was none in Eden, and to this day there is no day of recompense for us, because we are wise and we are prudent in how we conduct ourselves. And while we have seen that man can die, we will not die, and our spirits go whithersoever they choose, and thus it will always be. First off, in our Remembrance of Enoch series, in the episode titled "Fallen Angels Reproved," it was titled "Fallen Angels Reproved." All of the fallen watchers got a big reality check from the big homie Enoch, because they really believed there would be no day of judgment for them. But that reality check didn't stop them from pushing that narrative. So now you walk the streets and once will fix their mouth to tell you there is no God. So yeah, I think their plan is working, even though it's a lie straight out of the pit of CHAAKAMAWATH. You hear me? Verse 99. And when they came to the 9th way mark of the bread of life, they were afraid. And they were quietly, and they went quietly by and did not say anything. And it seemed to me that in their view, the bread was best left undisturbed. And the power of it was very mysterious to them. And they had heard that there was a man's spirit there that could not be overcome. Boom. Yasha, Savior. That's my deliverer. Man, let's read what happened when they walked up on the 9th way mark one more time. And when they came to the 9th way mark of the bread of life, they were afraid and they went quietly by and they did not say anything. And it seemed to me that in their view, the bread was best left undisturbed, and the power of it was very mysterious to them. And they had heard that there was a man's spirit there that could not be overcome. They ain't want no smoke with the man. The man that lives in all things. They thought it best to just leave him alone. Is their plan working? Nope. They ain't have no plan for that one. That's right. All praises to Enoki said. You know what I'm saying? Verse 100. And on the 9th way mark for the family, Ahayah said, we can make fornication pleasurable, and it will ever be inviting to those who breathe our breath, and women are nothing to us except to be used to entice with the form of their body, with the form of their beauty, and I will see that their beauty is enhanced and enlarged. Wow. Look around, Ahayah, Ahayah. Is their plan working? There's fornication everywhere. Fornication is encouraged by parents. Multiple wives. Y'all. Fornication is encouraged by some churches. Look at the sisters. Where are the older women giving reproof to the younger women? The older women are trying to be like the younger women. In that episode, YASHAYA and Kava espousal and marriage episode, in our Remembrance of Enoch series, Ahayah saw the righteousness of Kava and Enoch. He saw how Ahayah would attack them. Enoch did, right? Man, he saw how Ahayah would attack mankind through the sisters, right? Through the sisters, because he saw how righteous Kava was. Is their plan working? Are they tearing down the family structure? Yeah, I think their plan is working. Verse 101. And they all made exclamations of glee over the 11th way mark to endure. And they remembered Yakar had slept through his counsel at this way mark. And they said, we will give Yakar dreams of instruction, and his wife will obey us, and we will establish fornication in heaven and upon the earth. And Ahayah said, we will kill with death, and people will take their own lives at our bidding and not be able to endure, and they will kill one another with no regrets. And I will marshal multitudes to contend together until death, and graves will crop up like flowers on a hillside, and that will be an everlasting monument to me that this pathway cannot endure. Wow. Are people losing patience? Like I said earlier, suicide is at an all-time high. Hope is gone. There is no hope in marriage. There is no hope in religion. There is no hope. People would rather die. The murder rate has went up. Wars, rumors of wars, death upon death. We hate ourselves. Yes, people are losing patience. Let's get a precept about the brother Yakar though, right? son of Yasakai. We're going to the book of Remembrance of Melchizedek, chapter 8. We will start at verse 19. Remember, Yakar was standing at the waymark numbered 11, endurance. Watch this, y'all. Let's read Melchizedek chapter 8 verse 19. And the 4 children who wore dark countenances were Kenet and Awan, and Yakar and Rebaba. And you have been shown much about Kenet and Awan, as it has been written. And when Kavah named her little daughter Rebaba, she did this so Rebaba could know that her vision was for her to multiply comfort and to make a large company of those who are holy and of those who lived in tranquility in the sanctity of marriage. But now Rebaba multiplied ceremonies of lust and fornication. Y'all hear that? Rebaba was Yakar's wife. She multiplied ceremonies of lust and fornications. Goodness. Verse 20. And when Yakar received his name, it was to express that his vision was one of enduring and overcoming in order to prevail. And to this day, the name Yakar means to be capable, but he returned in his vision gross deceptions. And while Kenet and Awan departed in haste because of shame, Yakar and Rebaba departed out of fear. And one among the Decadarchi named Kokabel was drawn to their fear, and he became the principal Decadarchi to rule over their lives. And Kokabel, who is Phosphorus, the 4th inscribed among the Decadarchi, taught Yakar stargazing. And he taught the signs of the heavens, could define the vision of creative purpose of a person better than the traditions of the inhabitants of Ma'in, which was to be taught from on high, and that the stars could give a true vision to the people better than by the Holy Spirit, but it was a lie and a deception. Come on, man. Remember, he was asleep during the ceremony. I told y'all there was gonna be spiritual implications for that, right? Kokabel was whispering in his ears. A lying spirit is what he was to Yakar. He taught Yakar to disregard a few of the waymarks, didn't he? That's what losing endurance will do. You will fall to a multiple of the waymarks, if not all of them. Verse 23, and Zakel, who was generated electricity, the 8th inscribed among the Decadarchi, taught Rebaba to hate reproval. So Zakel generated electricity, taught Rebaba, Yakar's wife, to hate reproval. Wow. What else? Let's read. And any expectations of purity, he taught her to pursue lust and infidelity. And Rebaba established rituals of lust that began to have a female god named Ashtoreth, who is called the Queen of Heaven. And Rebaba became the mother of darkness. Wow. Wow, y'all. Zakel was whispering in her ears. Verse 24, and thus she did indeed multiply evil before the face of Enoch, said. And I know that in time this evil grew and became a plague upon Israel, and a principal factor which led to their exile. This wickedness that Yakar in his house brought forth many generations later brought down Israel. Are y'all seeing the war on our people? Let's go back to the book of Remembrance of Moses. We are in chapter 2, verse 102. Let's read. And at the last waymark, Zion, I was tired of listening and wished it would be over. And Asael said, we will establish collections of people who will be called cities. And I knew that they would call the first city after the name of Enoch, the son of Kenet, in order to mock Ma'in under the leadership of Enoch, the scribe of righteousness. And they could not forecast how the holy pathway of the law in Jeshurun will be a city of holiness, and it will come to be that in future days. They would recognize the threat and turn all their evil powers to fight against Ma'in to no avail because of the power of the Lion of Judah. That's right. Cities are thriving in Babylon, right? But this planet area is beginning to fail. Babylon soon falls, and Zion will soon raise back up. That is what the Lord is trying to help us to do by bringing out this information. Let's keep reading verse 103. And I was glad it was over, and a foreboding covered me, and I know that many hardships and trials await the children of Enoch, said. And the hosts of heaven are hearing all these things, and I feel much turmoil of soul among them. And the Lord said to us all, be peaceful. For the forces of evil are not all-consuming, and they are only powerful to be all-consuming if they are allowed to be. And through the law, the righteous will curtail their power and keep them in check. By following the law, y'all, we can cause their plan to be of no effect. We can look at their plans and not allow them to bear fruit in our lives and teach others to do the same thing. Man, y'all mash on the like button, subscribe to the channel if you've yet to do so. Hit the bell so you are notified every time we drop something new. Share this thing. So others had the opportunity to learn of these things as well. Let's keep reading the end of verse 103. And through the law, the righteous will curtail these powers, or their power, and keep them in check. And the 12 waymarks of the pathway to Eden will subdue them over and over again. And that is why they are so afraid of it. So rejoice for this day. I will send help for my people who will walk here in the holy pathway, and the help will be firm and effective and long lasting, and it will endure for all the course of the earth and into eternity. And I will raise up Enoch, and he will protect and support the holy pathway. And the Lord said, look, and I will show you marvelous things that will buoy you up with what would transpire with Enoch, and will give you strength when you despair for the 12 waymarks of Jeshurun. And now I will reveal to you all that came against Enoch to prevent his help. And we gonna stop right there for tonight, family. We gonna deal with Enoch, with the drama that Enoch felt going against his stuff, trying to bring forth his stuff. We're gonna deal with that next episode. The Lord said, don't worry about the plans of the Decadarchi and how long they've been successful. The law of Jeshurun can and will shut all that down. Have faith, family. I'm working on my faith. Let's work on it together. What stood out to me in this episode, what stood out to me the most? Let's see. The attack on endurance. The loss of endurance can almost destroy all the work we put in. We got to have stamina, family. The Bible says, woe to those who lose patience. Also to warn our sisters, brethren, we have to work on our compassion. We can now see there's a war from the pit of CHAAKAMAWATH on the women of Israel. So the fellas, there's a war on all of us, but in particular the women. We're gonna get to why. So as fellas, this 6-way mark is what we have to lean on. Loving in spite of sin. Brothers like what's that brother named Kevin Samuels have been exposing the shortcomings in a lot of our sisters. But these books are showing the origins of these problems. There is a supernatural war on our sisters. In the Remembrance of Enoch series, in the episode titled YASHAYA Espousal and Marriage, we read a portion of the Willie Lynch letters. Y'all go back and check that episode out. Brothers and sisters, y'all go check it out. It will shed light on the war against our sisters. Sisters, don't get it twisted. I don't think us brothers are perfect, not even close. We have been robbed of our compassion, for starters. But this I'm honestly speaking when I say this, the majority of our issues stem from the war on the sisters. Now wait a minute, let me make a disclaimer. I'm speaking to and about the brothers and sisters truly striving to walk with the Lord, but it feels like we can't get over this spiritual hump, right? I'm not speaking about brothers and sisters happily living in their sin. Sisters, I'm talking about brothers who are really trying to serve the Father. A lot of the shortcomings come on us because of the war on you sisters. The enemy knows that the women are the spiritual protectors of the home. Our sisters, for the most part, have not been taught that. Us brothers, for the most part, have not been taught that. So our homes are spiritually unprotected. I don't care how much physical protection y'all got. We got. If demons are walking in and out of our home at their leisure, the home is done. Sisters, the enemy attacked the first waymark in your lives, your vision. What is the role of a woman? What is the strength of a woman? The majority of us do not know. That's men and women. Y'all go get these books, RealJudah.com. We got links to the books there. These books are trying to build us back up. We also talked about the roles of men and women in our Order of Melchizedek series. The episode titled Week 3, Enoch, the third high priest. We talked about that in there. Y'all mash on the like button, subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell so you're notified every time we drop something new, man. Y'all stay hip to what's going on. We have more episodes dealing with this subject. This ain't a red pill channel, so we don't come from the position of bashing women. We are solution based over here, right? So we go to the scriptures and see what the Lord says do. But remember, the fourth waymark, the living water, reproval and repentance. That's men and women. That's wrong or right. We have to be willing to repent for the Most High's sake. That's it. That's it, y'all. We done. All praises, man. We got it in today. Let's get out of here. I thank everybody for tuning in. Real talk, real spirit, real Judah. And as always, I pray this message was for somebody. All praises to Kahi, which is the Holy Spirit, the Ruach Kadash, which gives us all CHAAKAMAWATH. All praises to Enoki said. That's all praises to the great I am, loving kindness, Ahayah said. All praises the most of the land. That's our Savior, Yasha. Remember, family, we got to love the Most High with all our mind, all our heart, and all our might, and to love our brothers and sisters like the Most High loves them, see them like the Father sees them, and hear them like the Father hears them, feel for them like the Father feels for them. It's your boy Peezee, Real Judah. Let go.
I had this on my mind, so I had to put this down, you feel me? I'm just gonna give it to y'all. I don't know what CD this is going on, you feel me? But the Ruach was speaking, so I had to let it go, you hear me? Real talk, listen.
I follow no one. I don't need anyone to take care of me. I've got my own mindset when it comes to you. My people think I joined the cult, they think I'm losing it. They got their Bibles, but they Bibles, they ain't using it. They go to church every Sunday, but look, it's useless. I read them scriptures and they under Satan's tutelage. You take care of me. They say pray to Jesus, but he can't compete. They claim to have wisdom, but they just out sheep. Ruach, that's my wisdom, and she's all I need.
Hold up, man, let's go.
Look at Ahayah, man, I be praying to you. Good and bad, I be praying to you. Ducked off up in the cuss, so nobody know what I'm saying to you. They be pushing, they be sucking, trying to knock me off my block. But I pray to you through YASHAYA, cause you Ahayah's all I got. And
I follow no one.
You know I don't follow nobody.
I don't need anyone to take care of me.
Self-sufficient.
I've got my own mind.
Free thinker.
Except when it comes to you.
To the Most High.
And when it comes to you.
Ahayah, Ahayah.
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 Comes to you.
Ahayah, Ahayah. Psalms 23:4. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod, thy staff, they comfort me. Ezekiel 20:37. And I will cause you to pass under the rod, and I will bring you into the bond of the covenant.
you can call me a musketeer, cause me, I keep my sword on me. Why I look so militant? Cause I'm knowing it's a war, homie. Wise as a serpent and soft as a dove. Cause I know YASHAYA Christ is what that is and what that was and what that will be. I be next to him if they kill me. So I spit bars with conviction, flee Babylon from conviction. Cause I'm knowing it's a mission to eradicate his children. So I stay up in them scriptures, get my pole and then go fishing.
The word is my baby.
I'm made in his image, so I try to do what my father said. Don't care about your pagan days, cause look, every day is my Father's Day. I listen to what my mother say, but see my sister say what my mother say, and my mother say what her pastor say. I could care less what her pastor say, cause see,
I follow no one.
You know I don't follow nobody.
I don't need anyone to take care of me.
Self-sufficient.
I've got my own mind.
Free thinker.
used to be in the flesh. That's all I cared about. That's all I knew. I know you was winking at me, but I'm open, I'm woke, now I see, and I got you. Holla.